Good morning, and we're live. Huh? How about those apples? There we are. Here we are. All right, we're getting there. Just a little slower. All right. Good morning. Sorry, I'm like right at the buzzer here as far as 10 a.m. goes. But you know what happens. And it's Music Monday, and we have a lot to talk about, both music-related and non-music-related. And if you're anything like me, you're having your morning coffee here on this lovely Monday. Doing the coffee-water combo. And I'm still doing the intermittent fasting. Hello, Schultzy. How are you? Good to see you. Good morning. Hope all is well. Hope you had a good breakfast or lunch, depending on what time it is where you are. Mama Alaska, hello. Hope everything's good in Alaska. Not too cold for you. Hippopalooza, Periscope notifications work much better than YouTube. Interesting to know. That's very interesting. Yeah, of course, I'm streaming over on the Twitter, too. And I'm streaming over on the Facebook. But this is where you get to participate. I can only check out one chat, so I do check out the YouTube chat. What's up, Alan? Good to see you. Good morning. Edwin, I got that video as well as the article you sent, and I appreciate it. I thought I love Morrissey's cover of Back on the Chain Gang, and so thank you for sharing that. I was actually listening to it as I was getting ready for the show, so thank you for sending that over. And I didn't know he played guitar in the video either. I watched the video for the first time. I've heard that cover multiple times, but this was the first time I ever watched the video, and he's playing guitar in the video. I've never seen Morrissey holding a guitar before. Matthew, thank you. Good to see you. Good morning, Susan. What's up, Kim? And thank you very, very, very much. I'm going to send you a message later, but that was very generous. You shouldn't have done that. That was incredibly kind. Thank you. Chris Walker, good morning, Ron. My friends and I are still talking about the great time we had seeing you in Sacramento. Shout out to you, Chris. So, in Sacramento, and Chris, I didn't realize it was you at first because you just said your first name, so it wasn't until later I discovered you were, in fact, the legendary Seawalk. But at our show in Sacramento, we were standing room only. It was a small venue. We did sell it out, and there was only so much room for everybody. And Chris stood for the entire freaking show. So I gave him a shout out from the stage, and I was like, "Dude, you get a free download card. You get a free album because you've been standing this whole freaking time." And then I talked to him for a bit, and it wasn't until later I found out he is in fact the legendary Seawalk. So yeah, it was really cool to meet some of you guys in person this weekend in Sacramento and San Francisco. That was really, really cool. Some people would just sort of give their screen names first and then their real name second, which was awesome. They're like, "You know me as such and such, but my real name is," and it was like, "Oh yeah," and it was really cool. It was so great to see you, Ron. You killed it in Sacramento. Thank you so much, Nicholas. I'm glad you got in with no problem. And it was awesome seeing you as well. And my nose is itchy. Crystal, excited for Music Monday. I am too. And, before we officially start here, we're at about 26, so we're starting very soon. But I just want to say, everyone that came out this weekend, thank you so much. We had 2 sold-out shows, which blew my freaking mind. The first time we sold out any show over on the Progressive Comedy Tour, I was just shocked and floored. But we've done our past 3 out of 4 shows have been sold out. And so that's awesome. Yeah, what's up, Daniel? Good to see you, buddy. What's up, Sagittary Grape? What's up, Stephanie? So that's been so cool and blew my mind. So thank you guys so much for making us feel so incredibly welcome up in Northern California. And Peter Douche opened those shows. He did a great job. And yes, Rebecca, Peter Douche was there. You read my mind. You're in the chat, Daniel. We're seeing you. What's up, Stephanie? What's up, Patricia? Yeah, Peter Douche did a great job. And we had so much freaking fun. What's up, Joshua? What's up, Edwin? And we're over 30. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. I was just giving a shout-out to everybody that came out this past weekend in Northern California. Seawalk was there. Kim was there. Nicholas was there. I got to meet a lot of you for the first time in person, which was so cool. And 2 sold-out shows. Thank you guys so much. Graham and I were just so floored and so humbled, and we had such an amazing time with you guys. And we were so happy. And Saturday night, I had one too many whiskeys because I was just too celebratory. Just one. I was okay. But I did have one too many. Because my sister lives in San Francisco, so she was at the show. So we all hung out afterwards. You know how it goes. But thank you guys so much for being here. And I'm wearing a T-shirt. This shirt says, no Trump, no KKK, no Fascist USA. I'm wearing a T-shirt. This shirt is from PM Press. PM Press was at the show in San Francisco. They were tabling. They're one of my favorite radical book publishers ever. I was so stoked when they agreed to table. And it was so cool to meet Stephanie from the company in person and to talk to her about the company and what they're up to. And she gave me this shirt. And the cool thing is that this is actually their slogan, by the way. I know that Green Day said this on television, and so some people attribute this to Green Day. And when she first showed me this shirt, I was kind of like, this isn't a Green Day shirt, is it? But it's actually their shirt. They came up with this. Not Green Day. PM Press came up with this first, and then Green Day used it. And I actually said to her, I was like, Billy Joe should give you guys some money. Now, that was me saying that. The company does not endorse that statement. They did not have a response. So I don't want to. That was me saying that as an individual. Because I think that, Green Day, they're pretty rich. And I'm not saying they stole anything from PM Press. I don't think they did that. I don't think there was any ill intentions on their part. I think that their heart is in the right place. But I feel like when you're like, oh, that's a slogan that a radical book publisher came up with, you should give them some money when you're rich. Tim Flowbug says, Green Day, masters of bandwagon jumping. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my frustration too, Tim. Billy Joe will do that when he comes around, Statutory Grape says. Yeah, and they did mention that members of Green Day have been very supportive of them in the past, so I did appreciate hearing that, and I'm not a big Green Day fan, and the reason I'm not the biggest fan is because I think they're very Mick Resistance-y. You hear their music as part of MSNBC. MSNBC plays their music a lot, which is sort of, I think, appropriate, where it's like, hey, do you want to feel like you're progressive, but really this is just corporate sanitized progressivism? Well, here's a band that does exactly that. So anyway, But yeah, this is PM Press, not Green Day. I'm just pointing that out. And what I want to bring up for Music Monday, before we get into some of the topics you guys sent, is the following. So I have a slogan here that I wanted to read that I just tweeted out. Let me go ahead and get it. I should have had this. I have a bunch of articles prepared, but I forgot. All right. What they did not want to ever to find out is that your generation, the generation born between 1980 and 1995, actually outnumbers the baby boomers. They knew that if you ever turned your eye towards political reform, that you could change the world. They tried to keep you sated on vapid television and vapid music. They cut off your education and fed you brain candy. They took away your music and gave you top 10 pop stations. They cut off your art and replaced it with endless reality shows. That meme's been circulating around the internet. I'm not sure who the specific author is, but I did share that meme today. And the reason I brought it up for Music Monday, on Music Monday we kind of draw the connection between music and the political situation. Because for me personally, and I know a lot of you fall into that category, some of you don't. Some of you are opening up more towards music because of this show, and that makes me thrilled. You know, my editor Joe told me that he has been making a Music Monday playlist for himself. All the music we talk about, he looks it up and he puts it into a playlist for himself, so you can kind of learn more about it. And I was thrilled to hear that, and I hope, man, if I hope a couple people are also doing that. I just think that's so freaking cool. But there's always been a distinct connection between music and politics for me. The music that I grew up with, that helped me get through my childhood, that helped me deal with my teenage angst and my adult angst, quite frankly. A lot of that music really went on to inform my politics. You know, I'm a punk rocker. I grew up on the Dead Kennedys, on Bad Religion, on the DC hardcore bands. And then, of course, I got into the poppier side of it, too, that was singing about girls, because I went through my teenage phase where I really connected with that. But, you know, a lot of that really kind of shaped the way I saw the world. And then, of course, it led me to reading Noam Chomsky and stuff like that. So I've always seen the link very distinctly, and that's why we do a Music Monday. That's why I see the connection between doing a Music Monday on a show called Get Your News On with Ron, where we send each other ideas, and that's how we build it. And there's a couple music stories today even. But so I wanted to focus on that one segment in the meme I just shared. They took away your music and gave you top 10 pop stations. We all know what happened. In 1996, radio got homogenized, and the local medium of radio got gutted and replaced with a very homogenized top 40 playlist all across the country. Before, it didn't used to be that way. And I am just old enough to remember when you had to seek out music pre-internet. I discovered punk rock pre-internet. Or at least, well, maybe the internet was probably around, but it wasn't, well, it was around. I shouldn't say probably. It was around, but it wasn't what it became as far as an information highway. It was around, but it was like unheard of for a band to have a website or something like that. So it wasn't the tool we know it as. Was it in existence? Yes, of course it was, but it wasn't what we know it as. You guys see what I'm saying? So I remember what it was like, and there were some edgier shows on the radio, and those were the types of shows that would play Rancid, that would play Bad Religion. And I connected with that stuff more than any of the other stuff, and I was like, what the hell is this? So I would go out and I would find those records. That was back when even your suburban shopping mall, you know, I mean, I grew up in the suburbs in western Pennsylvania. It was hard. You know, once I went to high school in the city, finding subculture became a lot easier. I found my local punk record store, so I found out where all the venues were, and by that point, the internet was kind of what we know it as now. So, but before then, the only thing available to me, because I lived in the suburbs and I couldn't drive yet, was the suburban shopping malls with the record stores that they had there, and they did have them. And, you know, were they like outstanding record stores? No, but what they did have was they had what are called compilation CDs. What those were, you know, a lot of smaller labels, they couldn't afford the advertising budgets the big corporate labels could. So the way they kind of got the word out there about their bands is they would have compilation CDs in all these record stores. What that was it was a CD or a cassette in some cases that would feature one or two songs from each band on their label. And they would sell it for a really cheap price because it was meant as a promotional thing. You could get a compilation CD for about $4 or $5. So if there were a couple bands you liked on a particular label, you kind of thought to yourself, I bet I would like the other bands on this label. I like Rancid and I like Bad Religion. I bet I would like some of the other Epitaph bands too. Who's this band Pennywise? Who's this band DFL? I like Minor Threat. Who's this band Fugazi? You get the idea. So you would buy the compilation, and every compilation came with a paper order form. So you would listen to the compilation. You'd find out there's some other bands you really like. Man, I really like 10 Foot Pole. I really like list goes on and on. So then you would take the order form and you would fill it out and you would order some records and some t-shirts and then you would get it in the mail later. I remember that. That was how I initially discovered music. And so the radio did help me. So people that were coming up around like 98 or so, they didn't have that. They solely had the internet. And I do believe there's a connection between the homogenization of culture and the kind of accelerated neoliberalism we've experienced throughout nearly all of my lifetime. I do believe those two things are connected. The fact that punk rock was shunned from the airwaves, for the most part. That, during the Reagan years, your punk bands and your hardcore bands, they had to start their own labels. They had to play their own venues. The mainstream was not interested. The mainstream was interested in pop music, in Madonna, in Michael Jackson. Not that those two pop stars are immensely talented. I'm not saying anything against them. I'm just saying that's what was in the mainstream. And hair metal, which, not my cup of tea. So I do see the connection between those two things. So how do we combat the homogenization of culture now? I mean, especially since we live in a niche generation. We live in a generation of niches. Niches, however you want to pronounce it. Where instead of the next big thing that's going to connect with the masses, there's the next subgenres of things that connect with some pockets here and there. The cool thing about that, everybody has a chance at finding their piece of the pie. Something like a progressive comedy tour likely would not have existed 20 years ago. Because comedy clubs wouldn't want to book it. And the idea of bringing comedy to an alternative venue, that just wasn't all that common back then. Now something like that can exist because of the internet, because of content creation. Something like that can exist. And it's been working, which, again, thank you guys so much. It cannot exist without you. And, let me know where you want to see the Progressive Comedy Tour next. January, we're coming to Florida. We'll see you then. And I'll talk about dates at the end of the stream like I always do. But what do we do to kind of reclaim our culture as people that are free-thinking, as people that want revolutionary change in this country, and as people that just want to keep this frickin' planet interesting? How do we battle that? I mean, obviously, we just got to keep putting our content out there and keep trying to reach as many people as we can and talking to our friends and our neighbors. But other than that, other than still going the course, what else can we do? And Tim found an article that really relates to what we're talking about, which I'm excited to dive into Tim's article. We'll do Tim's article first because it kind of goes into what we're talking about. But I'm going to go to the chat before we do that. And then, of course, I'm going to get to the other articles you guys brought up as well. And there's a few things I want to get to today, but if we don't get to them today, we can get to them tomorrow because that's freaking election day. But let me go to the chat first before we dive into anything else. Chris Walker says, keep supporting independent artists. Appreciate that. Stop the blue. Rebecca says, stop the blue no matter who bullshit. Know who you vote for. Daniel says, I don't know. Everything's fast food. Ugh. Nathan says, we traded CDs back in high school. That's how I found out the bands that I still listen to today. Chris says, punk is one genre that hasn't moved away from its anti-establishment lyrics and vibe. Yeah. Oh, and Patricia, thank you so much. Patricia gives a shout out to John Peel in the UK. Brilliant DJ. Brought the world so many brilliant bands, including the Undertones, another band I like. And Patricia, you bring up, we're coming to the UK. I told you, we're coming to the UK. But yeah, I was having a conversation with the BBC with someone, and they brought up, they were like, the music shows, I was saying, I was like, man, if they just gave me a music show on the BBC, I'd move out to Manchester. And they were like, you'd get like Top of the Pops or something like that. And my response was, hey, I know the BBC's not perfect. I'm not going to pretend they are. They're not. But John Peel. That was my response. You say Top of the Pops, I say John Peel. BBC's not perfect. They got their problems. But compared to the U.S., way better. Way freaking better. And John Peel's getting a little bit of love from other people. Everyone should check out, Crystal Collins says, everyone should check out Firebrand Records. It's a new venture. Oh, I'm not familiar with this. So I've heard Ryan. All right, well, let me read the whole thing first before I start commenting on it. Everyone should check out Firebrand Records. It's a new venture of Tom Morello and longtime Baltimore folk punk rocker Ryan Harvey. I've heard Ryan Harvey's name. I've never dug into the guy. I feel like I probably should. And I need to check this out, and hopefully we'll feature it on a future Music Monday. Let me write it down on a card I have here. I'm really high-tech, you guys. So high-tech. Firebrand Records, Tom Morello, Ryan Harvey. All right, we're going to check this out for a future Music Monday. Because I got to look into this. Oh, and by the way, in case you were wondering, I wrote this on... There's a few business cards that I just keep right next to me on my desk all the time. Is that for something like a booker over on television, Ron, to try to get you on Comedy Central or something like that? No, it's my veterinarian's card. I keep my vet's business card right next to me, just in case there's an emergency. If Lucy gets sick, she's gotten sick before over the years, I have a breakdown. Then after I have my breakdown, I call my vet where the breakdown continues. And then I go to the vet where the breakdown still continues. I've had to apologize a couple times to a couple different vet techs over the years. They're very understanding people. One time, a cat that used to be my cat is no longer my cat. It wasn't Lucy, but he got the crystals, and that's a thing that if cats get it, if you don't give them an emergency surgery right away, they die. And I pretty much had a breakdown at the vet, and I was not very patient with the technician, and I apologized to her profusely, and she was very understanding. She's like, look, you're going through a really intense thing, and I get it. You're suffering. I didn't take it personally, and I forgive you. And and then I started crying, and she gave me a hug. But anyway. All right, so anyway, I'm going to check that out, Crystal, and thank you for bringing it up very much. Always know your local vets, know where the emergency clinics are, and thank you profusely. They are amazing. You're right, Tim. Fortunately, my vet also can be an emergency stop, so I'm very lucky in that regard. I have a good vet here where I live, and I'm lucky. Radical Socially Conscious Artist, a ton of good stuff. I can't wait to check this out. Stephanie didn't get a YouTube notification. Grr! I know. Jilly, good to see you, and it was amazing meeting you in person. Thank you so much for being there this weekend. Rebecca says, my vet's name sounds like her anus. Hey, all right. And some of you guys are bringing when you had to put your animals down. And yeah, putting your pets down is very rough. I had a friend of mine that had to do it recently for one of her pugs. And I felt, it's rough. It's very rough. Sylvia says, I hate genre names. I grew up listening to radio stations that played rock, soul, country, folk, pop, etc. You know what, Sylvia? I echo that sentiment in many ways. I mean, when we use genres, it is a way of kind of making it a little easier on ourselves. But, a buddy of mine said this, and even though it's mildly pretentious, but I do think it's very true. And I know multiple entities have said this. I don't think my buddy invented it. But in a lot of ways, there's only two genres of music. Good music and bad music, and I try to find the good stuff. You know, I do kind of feel that way in many ways. I know it's a slightly pretentious notion, but I do think it's kind of true. At least I didn't grow up with poison. That's true, I didn't. And Nathan points out, not all pet clinics are created equal. Nathan's very right. And I'll say this, stay away from Banfield unless you have no choice. Stay away from Banfield unless you have no choice. They are the Walmart of care for your pets. They are the Walmart of veterinarians. They are unethical, and they are shady. Are there some good veterinarians that probably work for them? Probably, because in rural areas where you have no other choice, there's a very good chance there's some good, you know, because a buddy of mine, when I was calling out Banfield, he said, look, I know somebody that works there. She's an amazing vet. I'm like, look, I understand there's some veterinarians, they might not have another choice. That might be the only place that can employ them because they're in a rural area and there's no other options. I get that. But overall, if you have choices, stay away from Banfield. If you have no choice, I get it. But if you have choices, stay away from Banfield. Stay away from Banfield. Stay away from Banfield. Stay away from Banfield. They're predators. And Jilly points out the smaller local businesses of everything is better. And she's right. Well, Ron, that's a broad brushstroke. Yeah, but it's true. Yeah. Yes, there are vet franchises, Sylvia. There are vet, and I recommend staying against them. Mike says, I worked at PetSmart for 8 years, listened to Ron. And Mike, PetSmart does which I have nothing against. You know, I sometimes get my litter from PetSmart. They have good prices on the litter I like to use, and the litter that I use is hard to find, so usually I can only get it from a larger company like a Petco or PetSmart, because I use a walnut-based litter that's not easy to find everywhere. But yeah, PetSmart does contract with Banfield, and even the people at PetSmart don't like Banfield, by the way. I've experienced that. The people at PetSmart generally don't like Banfield. But the fact that they contract with them is problematic. So if I got to support one of the big guys, I actually will try to go to Petco where my litter is a little bit more. But I'd rather, you know, support an entity that has nothing to do with Banfield. Ron, don't use pet litter. That's what your bathroom is for. You know, if Lucy was younger, I would try to toilet train her. I've seen it done, and it's actually, you can do it. You totally can. And props to all the people that do it. But yeah. Wendy, our vet, comes to our house. I used to have one of those. Those are awesome. Mobile vets are really, really cool. I had a mobile vet for a while. It was when I lived in Tennessee. I don't think they have those in Southern California. I don't think we're built for it. But yeah. And Chris Wynn points out there's a local pet store where I live, and they treat their animals horribly. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's possible. I'm sure that happens. You know, it's just generally, you know, the local vets and the local stores are best. There's no local stores near me that carry my litter, so I kind of have to go to one of the bigger ones. I don't really have a choice. So I try to at least go to Petco. So I'm going somewhere that's not working with Banfield. So that's what I do. But anyway, and one more music shout out before we move on. Imperial Rooster from New Mexico. You will not be disappointed. Thank you, Tim. I will check that out. Pet litter is clay from China. Use organic soil. Add baking soda. I use a walnut-based litter that's all natural, no chemicals, and I really like it. I've tried pretty much all the... I've never made it myself because I would screw that up. But kudos to the people that can. I'd fuck it up. But I use a walnut-based. And one more shout-out for that band that Tim said, Imperial Rooster from New Mexico. And yeah, all right. So that kind of turned into a we kind of diverted from, and I am going to check out Tom Morello's new project, and I want to talk about that on a future Music Monday, because that sounds awesome. But yeah, all right. So this is going on what we talked about as far as homogenizing culture. And I guess really the only solution is to just keep doing our own thing and not stopping. I know that's kind of a simple explanation, but there is no other one. We just got to keep going and don't stand still. And not stand still. Boom. We played Prince before anyone else. How a small radio station changed American pop music. A Flock of Seagulls, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Bananarama, Duran Duran, The Alarm, Adam and the Ants. The names are like litmus tests for a certain generation of pop fans. If you can differentiate one species of poofy-haired 1980s acts from another, you might have lived through the New Wave era. That music empire rose to prominence at the end of the 70s, displacing both punk and disco by combining and tweaking elements of both genres. Though no single entity can take credit for New Wave's rise, one radio station played an outsized role in bringing New Wave and New Wave-adjacent bands to prominence, WLIR, which broadcast from Long Island in the 1970s and 1980s. The station hasn't received recognition, but a new Showtime documentary serves as a minor corrective. Cool. What's the documentary called? I'd like to check it out. Does it tell us? Okay, Dare to Be Different. That's the, I think that's the name of the documentary here. I'll have to check it out. I actually don't get Showtime. Yeah, Dare to Be Different premieres on Showtime on March 30th. Is this an older, this might be an older thing, so it might be out already. Yeah, this is from March, so that's out now. Check that out if you're so interested. It's amazing. It's amazing the role radio used to play. You know, we brought up Manchester, which I know Patricia lives there, one of our regulars. And Patricia, I am in love with your city. I have such a big crush on your city. Whenever I get really into a city, I describe it as a crush. A city crush, if you will. And right now, my big crush is Manchester. And in their music walk, which is a walk on Oldham Street in Manchester, they have little stone, like they have like these little kind of plaque type things for different bands. And there's one for the Stone Roses, there's one for the Smiths, there's one for the Happy Mondays, and there's one for some of the BBC radio shows that happen out of Manchester. And my point is, and you know, we brought up John Peel, and over in the U.S., we definitely had our, you know, we really did have our DJs. I mean, the reason we have rock and roll is because of a DJ. The reason it's called rock and roll is because of Alan Freed out in Cleveland. He was playing rhythm and blues, which was what it was called. But that was still a very racist time in our country. So rhythm and blues was considered race music. That was what they called it. So he called it rock and roll. It was still the black artist playing it, but he's like, oh no, this is rock and roll. And that's why it's called rock and roll. That's why the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in Cleveland, because of a DJ. So, man, there was a time in our country where the DJs were the tastemakers. They were kind of like the, gatekeeper has kind of a negative connotation, even though in many ways they were gatekeepers, but they were kind of the, delivery folks of culture, right? Like, they were like, here it is, we discovered this, we found out about this, and we gotta show it to you. We gotta show it to you. So, it's not that way anymore. I mean, now the delivery systems are quite different. Although I think the principles are still very much the same. And speaking of principles, somebody is standing up for their principles. Axl Rose, this is from Edwin. Axl Rose, Guns N' Roses has told Trump not to play our music at his rallies. Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose tore into President Trump on Sunday for playing the band's music at his political rallies after they formally requested him not to. Man, this story happens all the time. If you're a Republican and you like good music, first of all, you really miss the messages in that music. But second of all, must be tough. Must be tough. Bruce Springsteen told Reagan, stop playing my frickin' music. Tom Petty told Trump, stop playing my music. Guns N' Roses told Trump, stop playing my music. Pretty much everyone told George W. Bush, stop playing my frickin' music. So what did George W. Bush have to do? He had to settle for 3 doors down. Basically, every Republican has to settle for 3 doors down. Quite possibly the worst rock and roll ever made. That band is absolutely terrible. Why? Because they're corporate, homogenized nonsense. That's why they'll play for George W. Bush and not care. They have no idea what they're doing. We've talked about them in the past. They don't have any political views. They just see a paycheck. They don't have any integrity. And their music sucks, which makes it easy to write them off. And I know nobody here listens to them. And if you do listen to 3 Doors Down, you would never find this show appealing. Ever. If you're an exception to that, please write me. Please let me know. If you're like, I'm a 3 Doors Down fan and I freaking love your show, I won't apologize because I'll just be like, what makes you connect with 3 Doors Down? Like, they're terrible. Anyway, let's get back to this article. Rose took to Twitter to vent his frustrations. All right, so here's what he says. Just so you know, GNR, like a lot of artists, oppose the unauthorized use of their music at political events and has formally requested our music not be used at Trump rallies or Trump-associated events. Unfortunately, the Trump campaign is using loopholes in the various venues' blanket performance licenses, which were not intended for such craven political purposes without the songwriter's consent. Can you say shitbags? Yes, I can, Axel. Yes, I can. Axel said he thought it was ironic that Trump supporters were listening to anti-Trump music at his campaign rallies, but I don't imagine them. But he says, I don't imagine a lot of them really get that or care. So I don't know what anti-Trump music he's. I mean, I'm not familiar with Guns N' Roses' catalog, especially as of recent. So I guess I don't know if he's hinting that they're making anti-Trump music. Maybe they are. I don't have any clue. But I don't know what he's referring to. Several musicians have instructed Trump not to use their songs during his rallies, including Aerosmith's Steven Tyler, Twisted Sister, Elton John, and members of Prince's estate. Elton John's an interesting one. Because he's kind of, I thought him and Trump were friends. There's been other reports of Trump and Elton being buddies. Because Trump gave Elton John a shout-out at a press conference. He's like, my buddy Elton John says leave them wanting more. And then he left a press conference. Trump did that as of recent. So he's such good buddies with you. He doesn't want you using his music at his rallies. What a pal. What a pal. Man, that's a crazy thought that a plutocratic billionaire who has proven that he's a by-the-book megalomaniac narcissist wouldn't know what a real friend is. What a shock. That's interesting. Let's see. Oh, man. Here's something else in the article that kind of is a side note here. The rock icon, who is currently also the lead singer of AC/DC. Axel's on the pipes for AC/DC right now. I did not know that. And I gotta be honest, that's something I would love to see. I'm not a huge I appreciate AC/DC for what they are. I'm not a huge fan one way or another. I appreciate their songs. I appreciate what they did. But seeing Axl on the pipes, and I'm not a Guns N' Roses fan. I'm really not. Especially like when they had the beef with Nirvana. I'm a big Nirvana guy, so I kind of, really haven't appreciated Guns N' Roses for a lot of years. But Axl on the pipes with AC/DC, that'd be badass to see. So thanks for sharing that, Edwin. And we're going to switch topics here for a little bit. Well, let me see what you guys... Someone sent this in. There's some net neutrality news. So here's what's going on. Let me go to the top here. SCOTUS ends court fight over repealed Obama-era net neutrality rules. All right, let's go over the article, and then I'll kind of break down what happened. The Supreme Court has ended the court fight over repealed Obama-era net neutrality rules that required internet providers to treat all online traffic equally. The court on Monday rejected appeals from the telecoms industry seeking to throw out a lower court ruling in favor of the net neutrality rules. So here's how it broke down. Conservative justices Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Clarence Thomas would have granted the industry's request. Chief Justice John Roberts and Kavanaugh took no part in the case without offering a reason. Kavanaugh ruled on the issue while an appeals court judge, and Roberts has an investment portfolio that includes telecoms companies. Now, here's something else. What this means: Supreme Court wrote review old net neutrality rules, but doesn't kill them off either. This is from Steve Blum, a guy that writes a really good blog on net neutrality and municipal internet issues, and I've been in contact with him. We're going to get him on the show at some point. So the federal Supreme Court will let network neutrality rules stand, sort of. It won't review the 2015 decision. All right. So what does this mean? Just broken down, just you know. What this means: the telecom industries wanted the Supreme Court to reverse the rulings that they made in favor of net neutrality in 2015. They ruled in favor of net neutrality in 2015. That's how we got it on the books. We've had net neutrality assumed since the advent of the internet, but then the cable lobby took it to court. They won, but then the FCC, solidified net neutrality rules by designating the internet as a Title II classification. That held up in court. What the telecom companies wanted the FCC to do, what the telecom companies and the Trump FCC wanted the Supreme Court to do was to go back and reverse those 2015 rulings. Why did they want them to do that? They wanted them to do it because now we have state net neutrality laws that are moving forward. We had a law passed here in California. It's in the courts right now. They're going to battle this out for a long time. So the bad news is we don't have net neutrality on the books in California. The good news is they can't do anything about the repeal of it yet either because they're still battling it out in the courts. But what the telecom industry is trying to do, if they could get the Supreme Court to reverse those earlier decisions where they ruled in favor of net neutrality, that would make it easier for net neutrality laws on the state level to not stand. Because if they're saying, oh, well, you reversed what you did back in 2015, which means net neutrality is not, it goes beyond the law. It's not, net neutrality is not legal. The Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to do that. So because of that, and that's a good thing, because now, while it's being taken to court, the people in favor of net neutrality can point to the 2015 rulings and saying, look, in 2015, you ruled that net neutrality was not unconstitutional and that it's necessary for a free and open internet. So this is good news. It's important. And again, the permanent solution for net neutrality is not state net neutrality laws. Those are good and we need them. But the permanent fix, municipal broadband. And that's something that we can all fight for in our communities. I'm fighting for it in mine. Progress has been in baby steps, and I know there's some people that have had better luck than I have. But, yeah. So that's a net neutrality update there. They're not repealing those decisions they made in 2015, and that's a good thing because it will help new state net neutrality laws. All right. Oops. We got time for about one more. I'm going to save the one thing I wanted to talk about for tomorrow. I'm going to do it tomorrow instead. And I'm going to go to something else. I wanted to talk some about Prop 10. All right, we'll do a music and politics one. This is from Sean, and I'll go ahead and give this a Get Your News On with Ron retweet. All right. Beto O'Rourke sings On the Road Again with Willie Nelson in final pitch to Texas voters. With just one day until the 2018 election, Beto O'Rourke has debuted a new ad featuring Texas elder statesman Willie Nelson. The country music legend headlined a free concert for the Senate hopeful in September that drew an estimated 55,000 people to Austin's auditorium shores, where certified voter registrars were sprinkled throughout the crowd, and local candidates and politicians were given stage time between acts like Leon Bridges and Kerry Rodriguez. The new ad repurposes footage from the concert where Nelson invited O'Rourke up on stage to sing Nelson's hit On the Road Again, a reference to the 20 months O'Rourke has spent driving to each of the state's 254 counties. And I doubt Ted Cruz has showed up that much. Look, we've talked about Beto O'Rourke before, and, you know, I feel our summary was pretty straightforward and pretty... Is he some big progressive superhero? It doesn't look like it, no. But is he infinitely better than Ted Cruz? Of course. He's way better. Yes, he's way better. I mean, come on. Yes, he's way better than Ted Cruz. And Sean points that out, too. Let me see what Sean said, because Sean put a disclaimer in there, and when you guys point out disclaimers, I like to read them, because I know that you're... Look, Beto isn't perfect, but he's way better than most Democrats. I agree with that assessment by Sean. And also, this goes without even saying, but to repeat it again, he's infinitely better than Ted Cruz. Is he a huge progressive? Not necessarily. Is he infinitely better than Ted Cruz? Yes. Yes. If it came down to a Medicare for All vote, I doubt Beto would vote no. I doubt it. Can I say 100% he would vote yes? I'm not entirely sure. He said things in favor of single payer. His website's a little vague. But I highly doubt he would vote no on Medicare for All. I think he would likely vote yes. Ted Cruz, we know he would vote no. He'd vote no. We know that. So, progressive superstar? No. Better than Ted Cruz? Yes! Way better. Way frickin' better. So there's that. And he's running on more than just, I'm not Ted Cruz. And I know we made a video where we poked fun at the fact that you'd think Beto would be a little more to the left since he used to be a big punk rocker. And, you know, a bunch of people got upset about that video. They did not understand the premise of the video. They did not understand that we thought punk rock was a good thing. Like, they didn't understand. Like, they did not understand Music Monday. They did not understand the premise of the video. So if Beto does lose, it's because I made a video poking fun at the fact that he's not further to the left since he used to be a punk rocker. That's why. Even in the video, we said so many times, of course he's better than Ted Cruz. We said that multiple times in that video. But to some in the Mick Resistance, that's not good enough. It's not good enough to say, hey, this guy's trying to change a deep red district. Is he a progressive superhero? No. Is he better than Ted Cruz? Of course. You make the decision. I don't tell anyone how to vote. You make the decision. You know, is he better than a Joe Manchin? Yes. Is he better than a Joe Donnelly? Yes. So it's not like this is just simple lesser of two evilisms where he's just, hey, I'm not Ted Cruz. I think he's a little better than that. Is he a progressive superhero? No. So anyway, you know. But it's not good enough. It's not good enough. You have to say he's perfect and he walks on water. But anyway, you know, we made that video. And some people that didn't understand the premise of it and didn't understand what we talk about on Music Mondays got all up in arms about it, which I find humorous. All right, let's go to the chat to end the show today. Sean, thank you for sharing that. Let's see what you guys are saying. Let's see. See what you guys are saying. Damn, Ron, why you gotta pull a Susan Sarandon? Can't wait for the WAPO hit piece. Stephanie said Beto's gonna win. We'll see, I guess. I mean, I don't think anything's guaranteed. Jordan, by that logic, shouldn't we be voting all blue, though? Not necessarily. No, I think there's a big difference between just blue no matter who without any constructive analysis and just acknowledging, I mean, I think every case is different. So, no, I don't think it's the same. Because I think there's some cases where if you just have a Democrat that's going to go along with Trump, I mean, you're just enabling the right completely. And you guys are acknowledging that I'm a spoiler. Guilty as charged. Let's see here. Sema Hernandez was the true progressive. That is true. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen Sema Hernandez win that primary. Is the TV on in another room, Ron? I can hear it. No, I don't know what you're hearing, but no, there's no. I actually don't own a TV. Let's see. You guys are saying puke blue no matter who. Schultze's pointing out progressive superheroes are hard to come by. Yeah. Well, hey, do you. I mean, some of you guys are saying you're not voting tomorrow. I am. Because I get to vote for... there's more on the ballot than just candidates that I'm not really into. I get to vote for a public... Well, actually, I don't, because I'm not in the city proper. But in Los Angeles, people will be voting for a public bank. So for those of you that aren't voting, I hope you don't live in Los Angeles, because, otherwise you're not going to be voting for a public bank, which could really change not just Los Angeles, but the country. I'm also voting for Prop 10, which would be huge for rent control in the state I live in. So, yeah, there's some things that I'm excited to vote for, and I'm certainly going to show up to vote for them. I encourage other people to do the same. If you're not going to, that's your choice. That's your choice. Order of Chaos says, I always vote, but I don't do it for winning. It forces the elite corporate power to steal elections. That's a good point. Joe Donnelly is the Dem candidate in Indiana. I would rather eat my cat. You don't have to leave. You can leave things blank. I mean, guys, don't forget, you can leave things blank. If there's certain things you're excited to vote for and certain things where you're like, I can't choose between this, you can leave it blank. I can tell you, on my ballot, there will be certain things I'm going to leave them blank because I can't justify voting for either candidate. So I'm leaving it blank. But I'm not going to miss out on voting for Prop 10 and some of the other propositions that can make my state and, in essence, this country a better place just because there's a lot of corrupt candidates that I can't justify voting for. I'd rather just leave that part blank. And I have no problem leaving stuff blank. Jordan points out, I get to vote for we, gerrymandering, and same-day voting in Michigan. Plus 3 Greens and 1 Dem. So there you go. I left Senate. Chris Wynn says, I left Senate blank and just voted for my progressive congressional candidate and a no on the pay-go public question in Indiana. There you go. We the people have run out of time and must turn green after the midterms, Thomas says. Wendy points out the Tea Party took over at local levels first. It can be done. Progressives has good ideas. There's some truth. I mean, yeah, that's what happened. And there's progressives, and we're going to talk more about the election tomorrow, and I'm not trying to tell anyone what to do. I encourage you to vote. You know, if you don't, I'm not going to shame you. But I think you're making the wrong choice. You know, and again, it's because if there's no candidate you're into, you don't have to vote for those candidates, but there's going to be propositions. And keep in mind, there are progressives really trying to infiltrate the system. You know, where I live, and I can't speak for every area in the country, but where I live, there's progressives trying to overtake school boards, trying to break into city councils, trying to break in at the local level. I want to support those people. Do For a People's Party have any candidates? Patricia, there's candidates that they are endorsing, yes. I just watched Game of Drones on RT. I haven't seen that. I will not vote if they're not vocal anti-war activists. Then only vote for the anti-war activists. Nothing wrong with that. All right. So we are totally out of time. Totally out of time. Guys, we'll talk more about the election tomorrow. And some of you may have already voted by then. Some of you, you know, may not be, maybe later. I'll probably vote after the stream. Yeah, I'm going to go vote after the stream. Because that would just be too early otherwise. But yeah, so I'll go vote after I do the stream. Romplacone.com for all those tour dates. The album is out now. My album's out now. Pick it up. And if you want to get it for free, you know who gets my album for free? All patrons. Patreon.com/Romplacone for a give what you can level. You can give it any level. You can give $1 a month. You can give more than that. Whatever you're comfortable with. You get all kinds of perks, including my album. And it's going to be there. I just have to figure out the best way to post it. But yeah, I'm going to post it today. So for all your patrons that are waiting on it, today it's coming. I traveled a lot yesterday, so it didn't come out yesterday. But I let you guys know I'm working on it. It's going to be up today. And the album is out now. And tour dates, Austin, Texas. I'm coming at you this weekend. I'm going to be in Texas this weekend. We'll see what the climate's like. It will be post-election. Austin, Texas, still tickets available November 10th. I'll be there. Grab your tickets now, Romplacone.com. November 23rd, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Can't wait to come back to my hometown. Tickets still available, Romplacone.com. And the Progressive Comedy Tour is coming at you in January. January 9th, Gainesville, Florida. January 10th, Coral Gables, Florida. January 11th, Orlando, Florida. January 12th, Miami, Florida. Get your tickets now at Romplacone.com. And March 13th, New Orleans, and it looks like March 12th we're going to be in Pensacola. Details for those shows are coming real soon. And February, it looks like we're going to Hawaii. So we're going to have a lot of Progressive Comedy tour dates coming up. Let me know where you want to see us. I'm going to do another chat question where you tell me where you want us to come because we're booking 2019 now. You guys are amazing. You guys help me navigate these crazy times of ours. And tomorrow, we're going to talk more about what's going on with the election. We're going to talk more about just kind of how to cope with the midterms. Because like any election, there might be some things to give us reasons for optimism. There might be some things that no one's going to be too happy about. I'm usually mad after an election. I'm usually mad after an election. Like I've realized that. Like I've been mad after every single election. What are you gonna do? I love you all very much. Thanks for helping me stay sane in this crazy world of ours. I hope I do the same for you. It was amazing to meet some of you in person this past weekend, and I really hope I get to meet more of you in person in 2019. And thank you so much for being part of this. Stay safe, and we'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.